Silverfield give an opening statement and open it up for questions.
Good morning. Thank you guys for being here. Obviously, first and foremost, happy Veterans Day. I want to say thank you to all of our veterans and those that have served us in the past and those that are no longer with us and those that continue to serve. But our program and myself salute you and appreciate the service. An update on Carmelo. Obviously, I don't know what's been out there and what's been told, but he was released from the hospital. In fact, yesterday he was able to be part up here within our facilities and our program, which was great. He did have a spinal injury, and he'll continue to undergo further tests. And at that time, it's up to the medical people to decide, and like with everything, that's between him and those people. So, but it was great to see him up here. Was able to spend some time with him, and he had a smile on his face, and in good spirits. We'll continue to think about him and hopeful for a great recovery. Obviously, the game on Friday night. It's good, like I said, to play on a national television audience and be there for that, which was wonderful. And, we did some good things and some things to be improved upon. I thought the best thing we did offensively, we were good in situational football. We've had some trouble in short yardage areas and in the red zone. We were 3 for 3 in the red zone and did some things. The kicking game was an improvement from what we needed to. Defensively, they did some good things. The biggest thing is we had to find a way to stop number 0 Connors, and we found a way when it was all said and done. And when you come away with a win, no matter what it looks like, you're pleased. But lots to learn from on that. And then now focus turns to UAB and the Battle of the Bones. Obviously, I respect the traditions of the programs and excited to have them and play another national television game. Obviously, their head football coach is much more well known than me, a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and Coach Dilfrey's done a phenomenal job there. The record, just like with Rice, it's no indication what type of football team they are and what they've been able to do. I go back and I watch their game at Arkansas, okay, and let's call it what it is. Arkansas is the same team that beat Tennessee, so if we want to do our math right, it was a tough game because UAB was actually was a tie ball game with like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter at Arkansas. So they're capable of playing with anybody in the country. They put over 59 points versus Tulsa, and this past week they had a 3-touchdown lead versus a tough UConn team at halftime. So they are certainly capable. They're very talented. It's going to be a great challenge and a great matchup. We've got to have a great week of preparation. They have a defensive end with 6 sacks. They have one of the top kickers in the entire country, a Lou Groza Award finalist. They've got the #1 punt returner in the entire country. They have the 5th best passing defense in all of college football. So there's going to be a lot of challenges that are going to be faced. They got a wide receiver that's number 11 with 8 touchdowns in the entire country. So they got talent. They got a lot of talent all over. We're just going to have to play our best game, but it starts with a great week of preparation moving forward.
When you look at the seniors on your team, Seth, Greg, who played for you since they were freshmen, how quick did it go for their careers and they're going into their last home game?
It flies by. I can vividly remember a junior day with a guy like Greg Rubin, right? Like sitting on the bus next to him, talking to him on a bus at a junior day. Even before I became the head coach, and then next thing you know, you look up and it flies by. You're like, man, where did all this go? And it's fun because a lot of those guys, the Seth Hennigans, the Greg Rubin, some of those seniors that you've had the opportunity to know since their junior year of high school, those are the ones you build the bond with. Not to say Mario Anderson, him and I have built a relationship quickly. It's kind of like speed dating, but those guys that you've known, the Jonah Gambles. Right. I remember going and watching them play as a junior in high school, and then, now 5 years here. So those guys, it's just amazing the relationships we build, but it flies by, and people talk about it all the time. Those that have kids, like, man, it just time flies, and I kind of feel that way with this group. Like, man, especially being here as long as I have, certainly got a mess in what they mean to this program on and off the field's been remarkable.
I know you talked about it before in terms of when you recruited Seth and everything, but to see his progression. What have you seen from the kid he was his freshman year to now?
Yeah, obviously everybody wants to talk about on the field, Seth's, right? Not only did he develop, right, understanding this offense and then understanding college defenses and all those things. Like on the field, we can talk for hours about his growth and development. I think you just talk about the maturation of a 17-year-old, right? Like, think about this 17-year-old. I'll call him a boy when he got here to a young man, and what he's been able to do and how he's been able to grow. I think the nice thing is, like, the media, the city, the fans have got to see him grow literally right before his eyes. I mean, 175 pounds, soaking wet when he got here and couldn't grow facial hair. And now he's got this, whatever he's trying to grow on his face, and he'll tell you he's a young adult. So that's been fun, and just to watch that and to see how he continues to mature and grow. Those are the special things, But his growth here, I think also, and I've mentioned this in the past. Like obviously, my first year as the head coach here, we had a guy named Brady White, a 25-year-old quarterback that fans knew that had success, was in the Cotton Bowl, and then all of a sudden we have a 17-year-old. It's a big drastic difference in those quarterbacks, and what I appreciate about that, the first couple of years, and myself included, right? We both took bumps. Like, you sure you're the right guy? Like Seth took some bumps. Like, hey, you sure this guy's the right quarterback to lead this program? And I think, has it always been perfect? No, but we've seen him mature and grow and be able to continue to do a lot of great things for this program and for this community.
How rare is it now to have four-year guys, and then how important is it to have them every once in a while?
Yeah, Greg, I think like 4 and 5 year guys, I mean, they're everything, right? Those, even if they're not rah-rah leaders, but just part of it and understand the culture. Like, I'm not having to tell Greg Rubin, hey, this is how we dress, right? Seth Hennigan, this is where we park. Like, they understand the culture. They get it, right? Like, they know what's going to come out of my mouth, usually prior to it. Like, they could sit there, line up and tell you the keys to victory. They could line up and tell you, hey, this is what it means to be all in and what the pillars of our program are. And so those guys are so instrumental this day and age in college football. And I think where you see growth, not only off the field, but like in wins, I think it has a lot to do with it. They've seen a lot of football, and they've been able to do it, and they mean a lot, especially as the world of the transfer portal, and bringing in 31 true freshmen, kind of showing them the way. So I hope we can continue at the University of Memphis to have a lot of 4 and 5 year guys, because that means they grew up through the program, and that we were able to have our hands on them and pour into them every single year. But the truth is we know throughout college football that's getting harder and harder. But I hope every year we get to sit back and say, okay, hey, yeah, a lot of these seniors are transfers. A lot of these guys have been here 1 year, 2 years. But it's always going to be fun to talk about those guys that we've known since high school and watch them grow through our program, because I think fans appreciate that still to this day. I know the media certainly does, as you guys continue to get to know these guys a little bit better, because they are remarkable young men. We've been able to have a part of this, but as college football continues to change, the more and more we can hold on to those guys that we recruited out of high school and see them through.
Along those lines, talk about Jonah, because here's a guy who's a pretty character, let's be honest. And you've watched him mature from a junior in high school.
Yeah, you talk about that. Like, I remember going visiting his high school at Cartersville High School, and his mom works at the high school, and just seeing this, immature, watching a 16-year-old practice, and then going and watching him play in a football game, and kind of seeing his sideline antics and all that stuff, and so, okay, here's a developmental offensive lineman. Let's see how he's going to do within our program. And you get him here, and he's one of those that's been with it since the beginning. And from his first year being the COVID year, but being able to play here 5 years and play at a pretty good level. Fans will know he started as a left tackle for us in some games. He's played at both guard positions this spring. He played center. And so you just watch what he's been able, not just his growth on the field, but like off the field. Like, now that's a guy, 5 years, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, you would have said, hey, would you want Jonah Gamble running one of your businesses? No, but now it's whatever he chooses to do. Hopefully football continues for him, but like, he's going to be successful in life because, and I hope all the credit should go to the young man, but I hope because he went through this program, because he went through this great university, because he was molded by people like Lauren Hillman, our director of player relations, that poured into him, and he gave back to the community. He got to do things like Lebanon and youth villages and grew, right, and got the education here, the internship opportunities, and hopefully maybe some of the life lessons we've been able to go through. And it hadn't always been perfect for him here, but I can sit here and say, man, I would trust this guy, whatever he decides to do, whatever endeavors are set for him in his future, that he's going to have a lot of success, and hopefully he would say the same, like, man, this program did a lot for him, and he did a lot for us.
I know you'd like to have Chandler Martin for another 5 years, but do you think that you'll be able to keep him for next year, and then talk about his play and what he's meant on and off the field?
Yeah, first off, Chandler's having a remarkable season, another one, right? Obviously he transferred in from ETSU, and he's playing at an All-American level. Let's call it what it is. And I know someone, Terry, I think, asked post-game, like, do you think he's playing at, don't like to single out individuals, but he is playing at just such a high level. And but as long as they come in wins, I think that's all he cares about, right? All those tackles and those accolades. Winning is the most important. So he's playing remarkably. Those conversations we'll have probably happen right after the last regular season game, and that's the nature of it, because we know the transfer portal window opens up. We just had a compliance meeting that in December the transfer portal window's open. He may decide that the NFL is his best option. It's just like with a lot of our guys. I mean, there's guys in the back of their mind that probably already know, hey, I'm going to this school already, because they've probably been contacted, or their agents have been contacted, or their high school coaches have been contacted, or they have been contacted. And I can't speak for every individual, right? But Chandler's a guy that's had a lot of success here, and so we're going to see what's the best path for him. And some of them, it's, hey, staying at Memphis and continue on, seeing what happens for another year. Some of them may be declaring for the NFL. And as we know, for quite a few of them, it's going to be trying to see if there's another institution.
He's already in graduate school, is he? Or is he?
He's already graduated, yes, sir.
Ryan, what does this rivalry mean to you? Obviously, like, for a long time, there wasn't a game. I know some of the fans around Memphis like it, some of them don't. I'm just curious, having, obviously, this amazing trophy here, but just having it back last year, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, first off, I'm a football traditionalist. I think what's happened, like, and I joke around all the time, like, no one talks about the UCLA, Rutgers, traditions of like hard-fought, Big Ten battles. I think that's the conferences they're in right now, as of this morning. And so I still appreciate some traditions and rivalries, because I think that's what makes college football still what it can be, as it continues to change as we speak, right? Like, no one thought that they'd go to unlimited official visits on Friday morning as I was trying to prepare for a game, and then all of a sudden had to hurry up and change our recruiting plans. And I understand, right, there's Memphis fans that say, hey, it's not a rivalry. Anything that's been part of our history, right, I think it's unique to at least embrace. And certainly I just don't want to have a big trophy in our trophy case and just say, hey, it means absolutely nothing. If not, then, so it is cool, and we've talked about the proximity in cities and just kind of the old rivalry. So it's great. It's something, it's a unique for sure, and we take a lot of pride in it no matter what we're playing for. Ultimately, the rivalry set aside, the trophy set aside, it's a conference game. And now that we're in the same conference, it's important that we go out there and handle our business.
How many quarterbacks is there?
Great question. So we got the depth chart, as you guys saw. There's, but that you never know what you're going to see. They've had, obviously, Kitna is currently listed as the starter. We know that could change because Zeno played versus us some last year, and they've got a combination of guys that played. Kitna was obviously a former 4-star quarterback. His dad, an NFL quarterback. A transfer from Florida, is very, very talented, but we'll prepare for all of them because we assume we're probably going to see them all within the first half.
How much does a double-digit win season mean to the players?
Yeah, we haven't talked about it one bit. I literally, we don't sit there and say, okay, hey, now the goal is this. Like, it truly is. The goal is to go 1-0 this week. And Matt, I know that sounds like coach speak, but it hasn't changed. It really hasn't. Like, we haven't talked about playoffs. We haven't talked about conference. Because everybody says, how are you keeping, Ryan, how are you guys keeping the guys focused? How are you keeping them just to continue? I'll tell you, but come out and watch practice tomorrow, and you'll see that this game is as important as any game of the season to these guys, right? Watch how they prepare. Watch how they are in meetings. Watch how the locker room is, right? Like after a game. It's important. It means so much. So we have not talked about it. I think when they sit back and understand after the season, they'll sit back there and say, wow, if we're able to get to double-digit wins, what that meant for the history of the program. I don't think in 108 years Memphis has ever had back-to-back double-digit win seasons in 108 years. So if that's something we're able to reach, I think you sit back and say, okay, wow, that was a nice deal, regardless if people want to say, hey, it wasn't the season that you were expected to have. I get that, but we're still playing for a lot right now, and the focus currently is to go 1-0 this week.
Brian, going off of that, with the conference championship being out of the question pretty much at this point, you say we still have a lot to play for. Can you kind of elaborate on that? What have you identified? Is there certain bowl games you are going after? Is it that 10-win season? What is it exactly?
Yeah, sure. So I haven't been told we've been officially eliminated, right? I think there's still things that can keep going to allow us. So until you tell me we're dead, we keep fighting. But That's the goal, right, is to play in the conference championship, but all we can do is focus on beating UAB. So when we're not talking about bowl games, we're not talking about anything about that. You're dealing with a bunch of 18 to 23-year-olds that are very, very prideful and playing and being the best version of themselves every single day. And the fact they get to showcase that on national television on a Saturday night and they're home, and for a lot of these seniors, their last chance ever in Simmons Bank Liberty Stadium, I mean, that's enough to play for. And our guys are motivated, right? I mean, go look at any of these teams that are still playing. I'd say 95% are motivated just to go play the game they love. You're only guaranteed so many opportunities. And so I don't ever one time just sit there and say, well, what's there still to play for? Like when I got asked a couple weeks ago, was it the season a failure? Go look in the locker room, Friday night after the win. Like, you can't tell me those guys aren't still playing their tails off and love being around each other and love the fact to try to win football games. I mean, that's what ultimately is all about. Did we have control of being better earlier in the season? Absolutely. But right now, truly all we can focus on this game, and I think our guys are going to take great pride in the preparing of this team versus UAB. And I think just the ability to go out there and try to win one more game is huge for us.
Ryan, I know we asked you about after the game. On Carmelo, like afterwards, after the game ends, you're talking to the team. Does that kind of put it in perspective of you guys are out there playing a football game, but then something like that happened, and how do you kind of approach that?
Yeah, first and foremost, we try to address it because we only have so much information. So, I want to put our guys, if we can, at ease, because of course they're concerned about one of their brothers and an injury. But it does, right? We with the team chaplain, we kind of say, hey, let's pray for him and keep him in our thoughts. And then you sit there and say, okay, we hopefully won the football game and his recognition as well. But it always has, when injuries, especially something that it could be scary or significant, you always sit there and say, okay, man, we were able to go out there and you always worry about the health and safety of your guys. But there still is a game to be played. So it does put in perspective every time. Man, this guy, who knows what the extent of the injury is, still have a game to play. But you sit there and I look out and I look in the entire locker room, 125 guys. I'm like, man, just, I'm responsible for every single one of these guys, and now I got to go check on one that's in the hospital, make sure he's okay. Because my thoughts, yes, great win. Man, how about one of our guys back over there? And I think our players feel the same. They get it. But there was a sense of relief. Okay, hey, he was released from the hospital. They got to see him walking around yesterday, which is huge, and kind of sense. But, anytime something like that happens, it's very, very scary, especially in that manner. It kind of says, oh, wow, is it just a game? But as we know, there's a lot that goes into it and with it. And we're just so glad that short-term prognosis is we'll get more as we continue to evaluate, but just the fact that he's out of the hospital and was able to be around his brothers is huge.
Portland played on Friday. I know you talked about a couple weeks ago about he's going to come back. How excited were you to get to see him out there?
Yeah, look, I mean, the injury was thought to be season-ending. What's unique is he's never had a redshirt year, so with the ability to be able to play in 4 games plus a bowl game is huge, right, and that not count. So we're right on track, considering. So it was good. It was good to see him. He's a guy that we have very high expectations for, had high expectations for, and think that he'll be able to continue to help us as the season goes on. So he did some nice things, but I'm sure it was a little bit different going out there. But he did some things, and he'll continue to improve. I think sometimes just getting thrown out there after an injury is like, okay, am I capable of still doing this at a high level?
I know all of your running backs at different times this year have stepped up. Can you describe the difference when it's 2 out there compared to maybe everyone else?
What's that, number 2? Yeah. Look, here's the deal. I think they're all really capable. And people forget our starting running back on the season, Sutton Smith, right, who we nominated for the Doak Camp. Like, literally, because some people keep saying, well, what's going on with the offense? You could argue our best offensive weapon was lost in the first quarter of the first game, right? And I don't sit there and harp on it because that sounds like an excuse. But Mario Anderson is a phenomenal weapon and does a great job. Obviously, I think the ability with the way we've been, he's close to 1,000 yards, obviously having a tremendous amount of catches on this. He's done some great things. He's running really hard, and that kind of brings a physical element. We knew Rice wanted to make it a physical game, so we said, okay, if you're going to take away the passing game, let's try to run the ball, and we were able to do so effectively. So he's done a great job. But then I can't take credit away from, like, you watch Brandon Thomas, right? He had the one run, and then the second run where he rumbling, bumbling, and guys were pushing and gets the 16-yard play into the corner of the end zone. Like, Man, hard to argue like that wasn't cool to see, and to have him back out, and then all of a sudden Greg DeWozier gets that one run, slashes, and gets a first down, and a certain set of speed there. We've seen the true freshman with Macari, so it's kind of cool to have that stable of backs. But I think a few years ago we always said, and I remember vividly, almost sitting right here where we're like, well, you got a bunch of running backs that aren't even any good, and I feel like we've got a lot of talent in that room. But Mario's obviously playing at a really, really high level, and excited to watch him out there every time he gets the opportunity to carry the ball.
All three of those guys can play this week?
Yeah, as of coming down to this press conference, yes, sir. Yeah, that's the plan.
Coach, is there anything you could take out of last year's game in Birmingham and use it for this year?
Yeah, to an extent. So they still have the same coordinators, Greg, which is important because we will study last year's game, but just like they will too. Like, hey, what did they try to do? Where did they try to attack us? So that's as important as everything. But, you go into that game, and it was a back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It was 21 all at halftime, I believe. And then they had some turnovers, and that's kind of what got the game flipped in the second half. They turned the ball over, and we were able to get some takeaways, and I think that was a flipping point. So there's things like with all those, you look and you watch. I've watched it. But we just know that there are always going to be battles. All these conference games are. And then, then I go back and look at, okay, personnel from this year, because every roster's changed year in and year out. And then, like I said, I think the most eye-opening thing, I know that not to get away from that question, like watching them play Arkansas, and it is a tooth and nail fight all the way to 5 minutes in the fourth quarter. I mean, it's literally, again, like I always say, it's unique. Like, take off the conference logos, and you're watching a UAB team at an SEC school that I think a week later beat Tennessee, one of the top teams in the country, and you're like, holy cow, which team's which? So, all being said, yeah, you learn from last year, but then you focus on the personnel from this year.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.